So by now, a lot of people, if not most of you, have read or heard about the leaked messages between Steve Gonsalves, Kaylee's father, and one of his internet friends, a fellow internet detective. And if not, I'm going to link to the video I put out with all of the messages. There are some other creators you might want to watch who review these messages and go through them and read them aloud. One is Melissa Jade, a link to her. The other is Thought Riot Podcast. They go through the messages. You can watch both of their videos because I think they do a really good job of breaking them down. But there were a few things in these messages after I read them, and I've read them, I can't tell you how many times I've read them. And it's funny because every time I go back, I pick up on something else. And what I picked up on this morning was a statement that Steve made about his conversation with Hunter Johnson. Now, Hunter Johnson is Ethan's best friend, not to be confused with Ethan's twin brother, Hunter. So, as we know from Christy Gonsalves, Hunter is the person who was called over to the house by the surviving roommates. Hunter was the one who was called over because the surviving roommates couldn't get into Xana's room. And it has been said that he's the one who got the door open and found the bodies. Now, a News Nation clip from early last year, a leak, said that Ethan was found in the doorway of the bedroom and that his throat had been cut. And Christy, Kaylee's mom, said that Ethan's body had been blocking the door and that she had heard this from Hunter. Okay. Now, in these messages between Steve and his internet friend, he makes the statement that Hunter told him that he found Ethan. Now, this immediately makes my ears perk up because from everything that we know, Hunter found the bodies, plural. So, and Ethan and Xana were in that room together. So why would Steve say that Hunter said he found Ethan? Because if he's the one who got into the room, he would have found Ethan and Xana. This has me wondering if when Hunter entered the room, his body wasn't in view. If Hunter found Ethan, that makes me think that Hunter wasn't somewhere, that Ethan wasn't somewhere visible. What do you mean he found Ethan? If Ethan was in the bed, the way many people suspect, the way I've always suspected, what do you mean he found him? He would have been there. If Ethan had been blocking the door, what do you mean he found him? He would have been right there. I'm now starting to wonder if Ethan's body wasn't visible when Hunter first entered the room. Now, if Ethan had crawled out of the bed or fallen out of the bed on the side closest to the door, he would have been visible. Which has me thinking Ethan had fallen out of the bed, causing the thud, but he fell between the bed and the wall. And that's why Hunter said he found Ethan. That would also explain the blood that had leaked from the house down the concrete on the outside of the foundation. Now, all of this negates what we were told by Christy Gonsalves, what we were told by News Nation, right? We were told that Ethan was blocking the door. But if you think about it, that room was so small. If Ethan was at the door and Xana was on the floor, I mean, that would have been tricky to navigate around for the person leaving the room. So I'm starting to think that Ethan was not, when Hunter walked in, Hunter didn't see him right away. And this might also explain why Ethan's wounds were later determined. The PCA described his wounds as later determined. Were they later determined to be from a sharp force object? Because the way his body was when he was found, they couldn't move him, they couldn't touch him, and so it took some time before they could examine his wounds. Something else I want to talk about has to do with the credibility of some of the things Steve told this internet friend. And I'm not questioning Steve's credibility, to be clear. I'm very confused about this whole grand jury leak, because if there had been a grand jury leak and Ann Taylor was trying to get the indictment dismissed, I would think that Ann Taylor would use this leak as part of her argument. And it seemed very strange that nobody from the prosecution, nobody from the defense ever once commented on this alleged leak. Could the reason for the lack of comment or statement from the prosecution or defense be because they looked at the information that was allegedly leaked and knew right away this wasn't information that was even presented to the grand jury? This was not even discussed. And so they knew immediately this, Steve Gonsalves was probably trolled. Because for me, that's the only thing that really makes sense. That they looked at the information and said, none of this is accurate. Now, in the messages, Steve said something about how they found a receipt for $49.99 for the Dickies coveralls. Or it was a $49.99 purchase of something from the Dickies menswear line. And then he showed a picture, this picture of an insulated suit. Now, I think it's possible Steve was sort of guessing what kind of suit the suspect could have worn. I don't know that he knew exactly that it was that suit. But I will say this. That suit is not $49.99. That suit is well over $100. Now, maybe the suspect used a gift card from Nana. I don't know. But that suit is not $49.99. And I would think that he wouldn't risk using just a flimsy sort of cloth one because the blood could still leak on his skin. But maybe he did. I don't know. So that's weird. And he also says that they have him on camera buying some of this stuff. That too strikes me as very strange. Because we're talking about somebody, if it is Brian Koberger, we're talking about somebody who's very well aware of what law enforcement is going to be looking at in terms of evidence and receipts and camera and video. I don't think he would intentionally put himself on camera buying something associated with this crime. This is just my opinion here. He very well might have done this. Something else that I found odd was the part about the roommates where Steve said that they were texting during the murders, and that at one point one of the surviving roommates texted, and they don't say to who, and they don't say which one, but they say that she texted, "I think someone killed them." Now that could have been texted at any time Probably, it sounds to me like if that text did happen, it happened after the bodies were found. But there's something about the roommates texting during the murders and the fact that that news first came out on Twitter from JLR. That came out on the same exact date as the date of the message where Steve G tells this internet friend the exact same thing. I don't believe in coincidences. And so I don't think that's a coincidence. And JLR is pretty prolific in terms of the amount of content he creates. So it takes a lot to go through a lot of his videos. But there's another video where he says that the roommates, based on the text, the roommates knew what was happening. And I go right back to that text that Steve sent. Now, we've all heard that Steve G was talking to a lot of different creators, and I believe that. I do. But there's something about the fact that JLR first broke that news on July 9th, and that's the same date as Steve told his internet friend. Something's weird there. And I don't know what it is, but I do wonder if it has anything to do with the grand jury leaks. Is it possible that this person, this alleged juror, is it possible that this person contacted a bunch of different creators and posed as a jury member? Is it possible that somebody within the community, the true crime community, was posing as the juror member just to disrupt things? I don't know. But something's not right there. Something about this grand jury leak and the lack of reaction from Ann Taylor and Bill Thompson. Something tells me that this leak, whoever this person was trolling people. Now, is it possible that JLR was talking to Steve G on the same day? Absolutely. But again, we're talking a matter of hours between JLR's tweet and the message between Steve and the internet friend. It's uncomfortably, that's an uncomfortable coincidence for me. My feeling is that somebody was trolling these creators. Maybe it was a creator, maybe not, but this wouldn't be the first person to troll creators of this community about this case. My question is, Steve says that he was introduced to the juror through James Patterson, the author. Again, I just wonder how. How was this done? And I wonder. Now, it was news. When it was said that James Patterson was writing a book, that was public information. And that news came out months before the indictment. Could this troll have just reached out to James Patterson? What do you think? Do you think someone was trolling the community and pretending to be a grand juror? Think about Ethan. Why did Hunter say he found Ethan? Tell me in the comments.